So welcome to the Diplomatic Mission for the Cygnus. Today we have a very special presentation, and we're going to be talking with my friend and our friend of the Diplomatic Mission, Dr. Corinne Allen. And I've known Dr. Corinne for many, many years. And today we're going to talk about a very interesting subject matter, which is going to involve the firearms transaction record, the Department of Justice form. This is going to be talking about how to obtain your firearm, or I would say up here, according to the Constitution, your armament, but we're going to have to use the word firearm because it is on the form. We're going to be talking about how to engage once you have received your ambassadorial or state national passport, how to properly move forward with obtaining your firearm utilizing your new passport. So this class is, or this presentation is for those who have completed the class with the Diplomatic Mission for the Cygnus or the workshop, the online workshop. So Dr. Corinne is an ambassador also. She's completed the course and she's gone through and obtained her passport, so now she's ready. And so we're going to walk through the scenario about what she's going to do when she gets back. She's going to move forward with obviously going to the nearest location where they have this thing called FFL, and the abbreviation actually stands for Federal Firearms License Dealer. Okay, so she's going to be going, when she gets back to her home, she's going to find the nearest place that provides armament, I would say, under the Constitution again, the opportunity for her to select the firearm of her choice. So once she goes in there and she's shopping and she's looking around and finding out what's suitable for her needs, of course, I'm going to have fun right now and I'm going to show you which one I selected. Some people call me the nun with the gun, and this would be the reason why. So this was the firearm of my choice, okay? So once I went in to the location, I was able to, there's a couple ways you can purchase these, or a firearm of your choice. Obviously, there's conditions that do apply. You're going to have to, follow due course on the form, because if you have, certain felonies or what have you, obviously that's a no-go. It's not going to work out. However, for those who have passed our course, we're going to be going through the actual form and the procedure. So I selected the firearm of my choice, and what I did is I first called up the location and I said, listen, what do you need from me in order to supply the proper identification in order for me to procure the armament of my choice? And they said, you're going to need a form of government ID and some kind of documentation that evidences your home address, because they do need to have that. So in my case, I was able to use an IRS form that was issued by the IRS, and that was perfectly sufficient, because at that point, I didn't have like evidence that I owned a house or anything like that. This was ordered a few years back. So then you also have to make sure that you're going to have to call each location and make sure you're in compliance with their rules, because these rules do get updated, and sometimes they can be a little more lenient with you if maybe you want to bring in an electric bill or what have you. As long as it has that address there with your home address, they're going to find that's what they're looking for, is documentation that's going to match up with that. Now, if you had a driver's license, that's what we're avoiding using. And the reason for that is because the driver's license has you completely contracted into District of Columbia. So that's why we're trying to figure out what kind of document is going to provide evidence of you having a home, a location. So that's very, very important. So once you get in, you're going to comply with their rules. And of course, another important element here that we're not going to be able to go through, although we have both completed it for ourselves, in the later date, we'll have to entice you with this. We have our own special trusts and our special ministries. So what I brought with me in order to purchase the firearm was my trust debit card, okay? And others, we've had others go in there with special ministry debit cards. And so we can make purchases on that using the card, because the card is tied to an account that is not tied to our social security numbers, which is very important. We want to try to, I mean, if someone has to go in and purchase a firearm using what they want to use, they're welcome to do that. You're welcome to do that. But from my point of view, we try to follow what we're doing with the paperwork, with the ambassadorial passport, so that everything matches up. We're trying to make sure our records are complete. So the reasoning why we want this passport is for the following. Okay, the following reasons are what I've heard. Now, this is hearsay, but I've evidenced this through my own personal experience, and Dr. Corinne's about ready to share with us an experience of her own. It's alleged, and I do believe this is true, and one could try to do a Freedom of Information Act request asking for your passport application that you did fill out. However, their responses that are coming back are, they're saying, due to this being a matter of national security, we cannot supply you with the application you actually filled out with the Department of State. So I'm like, okay, so there's a public and a private decorum that has to be held with these agencies. So we don't want to get anybody in trouble or call up a cop friend of our and say, hey, what's on my NCIC report? We don't want to do that, because they're going to get fired for disclosing that type of information. So one of the benefits of signing up with us and getting your passport, whether it's ambassadorial or whether it's state national, totally cool, whichever selection you choose, on there is, we understand, is restricted, do not detain, do not interrogate, lifetime concealed weapons permit. Now, I can't verify that, but certainly from the experience that Dr. Corinne had, she's experienced some very positive scenario, which I'd love for you to get into. So if you don't mind, whatever you want to share about, without having a passport, how you felt when you're on the roads, and then once you had it.
I was on the road and I decided to use my passport for, I was on a road going to my son's house, and normally it's 45 miles per hour, but on the first section of it was 35, and I was going a little bit faster than that. And of course, the cops come in the opposite way, and I see him turn around. Ooh, what am I going to use? So I had my passport with me, and I showed it to him, and he said, give me your driver's license. And I said, well, here. And so he went back and was a bit checking it out, came back to me and said, thank you, ma'am, have a very nice day.
So you didn't have your driver's license on you.
No.
So you presented a passport.
I used my ambassador passport.
Yeah, and that was the response.
He had no, hey, cool it, stop driving fast. I wasn't driving that fast, but he was doing his job, but no ticket, no warning, no nothing, just have a lovely day.
And you've had experiences before that where they've stopped you without having had your ambassadorial passport, and what was that experience like?
Well, in the past, they give you a ticket.
Yeah.
And they give you a warning. They're usually not nice enough to give you a warning, but they give you a ticket. And, I'm very careful how I drive, but once in a while, you get missing the speed limit. And it was so great to see, wow, this thing really works.
And so now there's relief.
He didn't have anything to say after he checked it out. Like, bye, I can't keep you here.
Wonderful. So that is one benefit. And again, I can't promise that these are the same results you'll experience, but I certainly can say, based upon more than just, many of us within our own group, we've experienced these types of experiences at the roadside setting. And it's wonderful. And it's a calming thing to know that we can present our passports without dealing with the other rigmarole that ends up happening. Now, obviously, we're not driving drunk. We're not doing anything like that. We're not here to harm anybody. But we also don't want to be caught up in any sort of commercial interaction with these policy officers. We want them to act as peace officers with us. So essentially, what Doctor is going to do, and we're encouraging others to do once they've completed the course and they have their wonderful passport, is they're going to go online, research, like I said, the FFL, the Federal Firearms Licensed location, your nearest gun shop or what have you. And as long as they have an FFL, like if you ordered something online, that's totally okay too. I found a lot of deals online and I'm like, look, you can't get these prices anywhere. So what I did was I ordered it online, but then I had it shipped to the FFL location and I saved myself.
I think that's important because that was some piece that I was missing. Now, what do? You can't get it online doing this system, but you can. You send it to the FFL location.
Yep, so you can't obviously have firearms shipped to your house, but they will be able to ship them to the nearest location to you. And what these guys do for us is they will do an NICS check. Now, that's a long acronym, but National Instant Criminal Background Check System is what the NICS is. And so from mine, what it looks like is when I went in to make my purchase, it takes sometimes 3 or 4 days, depending on the place. They're going to have you fill out this wonderful form first, which is I don't want to tell you the wrong, it's the Department of Justice Form 4473. The updated version was August of 2023. The OMB number, very important if you're going to dig this up online, is 1140-0020. So that's the most updated form for the U.S. Department of Justice. So you're going to fill out this form, and I'm going to get into that just a little bit. But before you fill out the form, you're going to make sure you have, like we mentioned, your debit card or what have you, and you've got your passport and some way of identifying what you're going to call them in advance, what they need, because you want to make sure you're in compliance with what regulations they have to follow too. So they're going to ask you some way to identify your location, your home address. So at this point, they're going to run a background check on you, and then they're going to call you back and say, hey, everything's cool. Or if there's a problem, they're going to tell you there's a problem. And so, like I said, that generally speaking, sometimes it comes in within 72 hours. Sometimes it's a little more, maybe 5 days, but it's not really that long of a wait. Obviously, if you're having your firearm shipped to them, it's going to be a little longer, which is natural. That's normal. So you're gonna, from that point, go in. They're going to, you're already going to have filled out. You're going to be filling out this form. Now, thank you. This form here has changed. So you have to make sure that you're looking at the most recent OMB number because you want to get the most updated form as best as possible. It helps everybody breathe a little more easier.
What's the website you go to get that?
You can get this, I believe, at U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. So the other thing is when you usually go into these locations, they will actually have these printed out. But if it were I would actually make sure I brought in my own just to make sure everything's as updated as possible, just to verify. So basically in here, all you're going to do, and of course we don't offer any legal, tax, medical, or financial advice. I'm only sharing with you all what I've done that's been working for me successfully. Because like I mentioned, I had many more selections than just that. But we'll just feature one for today. So must be completed by transfer seller before transferee buyer completes section B. So of course, this is a federal form, so you do not want to lie. Okay, this is very important that you're extremely accurate. You're going to, they're gonna put in the model and all the specs to the firearm of your choice, and then down here, you're gonna put in your name, your last name, your first name, your middle name, and you're gonna put the current state of residence, the city. Reside in city limits, yes, no, or unknown, the state, the zip code. I just put the zip code in brackets because that's kind of how I teach others in my course, in the diplomatic mission for the course, that's the course for the mission, that putting the zip code in brackets is important so as we're not joining jurisdictions back into DC. You're going to put in the county, the place of birth, or foreign country if you're a foreign national, your height, your weight, your gender, your birthday. Now, what's really cool here that I respect is the fact that the social security number is optional. So that's kind of cool that they don't force you to have to put that on there. Even though if you wanted to fight it with tooth and nail on other forms, you could under the Privacy Act of 1974, but it's just much easier when you don't have to contend with them.
That's cool.
The other thing is, you could have a unique personal identification number or appeals management number. So that's another one for those who have that. Your ethnicity, your race. I was perturbed by the request for this. I was actually upset the fact that they asked this on the form. And I just said, I'm a part of the human race. Why are we doing this? But I do.
Did you get away with it?
Well, the guy, he laughed, but he was like, no, it's because when the FBI and all of them process the form, they keep statistical checks with the different situations that are happening.
Guns and
Yeah.
what guns
and who, that's the way that they keep their statistics. So that makes sense. So once again, I just, put in American national, and I put this in parentheses. So it was very clear that I'm not aligning myself with certain things, because if you say you're American Indian or Alaskan Native, that triggers treaties between the United States corporation and that. So it's kind of like a tricky situation. So what I did is I just put little parentheses, around it.
around your ethnicity.
Yep, yep. And then I put American national right there. And he said, I understand, because he was wonderful. These people really are stepping it up. Like, they're understanding what's going on with this. And the other part that I was very overjoyed about was on 19. It says country of citizenship, checklist more than one if applicable. Nationals of the United States may check USA. So they have two boxes, United States of America, USA, and then in parentheses, and then the other country or countries please specify. And it goes on here, if you're an alien, record your US issued alien or admission number, etc. So that's pretty cool, because they're not entrapping us with any kind of language.
Yeah.
A US citizen, check it off. No, it's really it's wonderful. Then you have a series of questions that's either yes or no. Obviously answer them to true, complete, accurate, and not misleading to the best of your knowledge.
That's a lot of questions.
They have, up to MN. So it's just like maybe a half a page if you add it together. So it's a half. Yeah. And that's it. So the rest of this is handled by the transfers. So you're in good shape. You don't have to bother with that.
Yep.
And then, it's not that bad. It's just a couple of pages, but it's pretty straightforward. So as long as you're saying on there, and then what I did was I put in my passport number as the identifier. So that passport number.
That's important to know. What's it say? What section is that?
So just trying to see here, because it says with the identification.
So it's halfway down the first page, in the middle there.
Yeah,
and
you
where
would
you put that number? Now,
I don't know that it's I who would put it. I believe it's the actual the seller of the firearms.
What would it be? When would we put it? What is he asking us that we would know to put that number?
We actually hand it to them. They photocopy
Oh,
the
they figure out
passport.
where to put it.
They attach it to the form here, and I
Okay.
believe it's in one of their boxes. So here it is. Yeah. So they're going to put must be completed by the seller
On
prior
the second
to
page.
the transfer of the firearm. So they put it in under 26A
Okay, that's
identification. So
Okay.
they'll put the number there for you,
Okay.
et cetera, et cetera. And that's pretty cool, because that number is going to tie together with the Department of Justice. The interlocking files.
It will tie with your passport.
Yep. So Department of
Really
State,
cool.
Department of Justice now is in harmony.
One thing that was interesting to me is that once you do your passport, your it's like that covers all the agencies through the government.
Yep.
Which you don't have to do if you did DMV or if you did another license or something, correct? That it's already in their database because you've done it through the Department of State with the passport.
With the passport, it secures, it cleans up their particular file. However, if you did sign up to get a driver's license, you would have to go through your own special process with the DMV, because that's state. So this one's, the U.S. Department of Justice is quote unquote under, it's federal, it's under the administrative side of it. So if you had an issue with having a driver's license and you wanted to get involved with, you know, sending that back, some people have done that. So that's the form itself. So you would be completing that. And that's obviously the day that you walk in. They're going to need the 3 days or so, or maybe 5 days, to get this, you know, verified with the NCIC. They're going to make sure everything's kosher for that. So let's see. Yeah, you have 72 hours, give or take. And if you wanted to purchase it using a trust, we do offer trust. We do offer ministries, and people have purchased their firearms through such. And that's a whole other separate agreement, but it's not necessary. As long as your passport and your identification is clearly marked on this form, it's A-okay. But I tend to like to cross my T's and dot my I's and make sure everything's really safe. I like to, you know, convey these, you know, armaments into the proper trust and so forth. It's just, it's my preference. So what else do we have here? The NCIC, oh, okay, so the benefits and the reasons, we've already covered that. Okay, and of course, this is a scriptural thing too. You know, defending ourselves is a scriptural mandate. The Lord did talk about selling your cloaks and picking up a sword and making sure you have a couple of things to protect yourself.
The nun with the nun with the gun.
The nun with the gun. We'll have to sing that. Nun with
Where's your
the gun.
song?
We'll have to pull it out. So yeah, this is a scriptural mandate, and the Lord was clear, you know, in the beginning. He said, well, no, sell your swords and so forth. But he then realized, okay, wait a minute. He was heading into the suffering Messiah modality versus the other one, the other Messiah that's going to be sitting on the throne, you know, of David, okay, the kingdom and so forth. So the Lord was paying attention to what the Father was showing him. Paying attention, he knew what the Father was showing him, and so he just followed suit and went in. But for the people of God, for the citizens of heaven, the Lord was explaining to us that we do have an obligation to protect ourselves. Obviously, first by prayer and angelic, you know, we call upon them. We dispatch the holy angels to our aid. But the key is it is beautiful how America has outlined that particular spiritual element into the Constitution.
Amen.
That is so important, because without that, it's just absolute. The order of things goes completely berserk without that mandate being followed. We have an obligation to protect ourselves. So then once you do obtain your firearm, I highly recommend, there are programs out there like Legal Shield. You can join that. It's really inexpensive. I don't remember what it costs. It was like $20 a month or something. But what it is if something ever happened and you had to use your firearm to protect yourself, these guys would teach you, you know, or represent you, or you could sign in, and that you would get access to an attorney who would be able to help you in a situation like that. And the other thing I highly recommend too is Christian warrior training. Christian warrior training and any other means where you can get training on protecting yourself is absolutely, I advocate for this group here. They're really practical. The instructor is wonderful. And so he's just upbeat, and he's just very down to earth and lovely. So I highly recommend that. So anywhere where you can get extra training in the future. And also, we're going to be featuring in the future more options for training with firearms and other methods and so forth. But we're still in development of that. We're actually building a special protections for diplomats, for ambassadors for Christ specifically. So that's
where what will happen is we'll be taught what weapons to use. And for example, me, who I'm single, I don't know how to use a weapon, so by getting a weapon, I need to have some training. I've already started some of that training, and so it's really neat that you guys are providing it in a course where it's done correctly through the Constitution. We don't need to be afraid of using it or that we're breaking some law by having it and being protected with it.
Absolutely, and the trainer's lovely. We've got the best trainers. So that's something that's in progress. And so essentially, I'm going to provide the, if you're interested in moving forward with us to get the passport or to engage in the course with us, we are more than happy to have you on board with us to do that. So what I will do is I will leave the information in the description box below on how you can reach out to us, but it would be a pleasure. So this is just one other way that we're regaining our dominion, because a lot of times in life we were taught to be more passive on these things, and it's extremely important that we integrate, scriptural, teachings, and that we bring these things all together, and so it's a seamless thing. So you're not only learning about the passport, but what else can you do with the passport? What are these other benefits that you have as a result of reclaiming your first estate and reclaiming your God-given rights instead of privileges that are granted by a government?
Okay.
The NICS, when you give them your passport, that's what they're using to look up your status at the NICS, which is the crime registry, where if you weren't able to get one, they would have to pause this entire process. But it says right here, payment completely satisfied, so they're good with that. NICS number, and it ties, that's all connected into your passport.
Oh,
Okay,
cool.
and then here it says NICS.
So this is the form that you get back after you've gone through the registration of your weapon.
Your armament, yes. Some places will provide this kind of information, others may not. They might just give you a plain and simple receipt.
Okay.
This one was a little more thorough, and it just says NICS status proceed.
Great.
Okay, so that's where that comes from. If it seems a little foreign, that's what that means.
Awesome.
So I appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you. This has been
Diplomatic.
great. I'm excited. I'm excited for all of us to be protected, and we know that our first protection is from heaven, but it's always good to know how to protect ourselves if we have such a need.
Absolutely. So thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you.